Folks, this episode is brought to you by Patriot Gold Group. Call 888-505-9845. Mention me, Michael Malice, and get your free investor guide today. Again, that's 888-505-9845 for your free investor guide today. Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have with us perhaps our most requested guest. Finally, I am giddy to be able to speak to Jimmy Dore of the Jimmy Dore Show. Jimmy, thank you so much for making the time to come on the show.
My pleasure. I'm excited as well.
So I first saw you speak. You didn't see me. You were introducing Tulsi Gabbard at a church in Los Angeles during her campaign. I had to leave. I was waiting for her. You were going on. You were so impassioned and charismatic about promoting her candidacy. I'm sure you understood at the time this was a long shot, if not an impossibility, obviously. But she certainly was in a position to make waves during the nomination period, which she certainly did. What is your view of Tulsi recently leaving the Democratic Party and kind of siding with like Carrie Lake and people like that?
I didn't see her side with Carrie. She did that. I didn't know. Well,
yeah, she endorsed Carrie Lake and Dan Bolduc in New Hampshire.
See, let's remind people. What attracted me to Tulsi Gabbard was she had the courage to tell the truth about Syria.
Yeah.
And so I was at the time currently being smeared by everybody, including CNN, which it's still in my Wikipedia if you go there. That I was a conspiracy theorist around the Syria gas attacks. And what I was a conspiracy analyst, because they said that they concocted a conspiracy that Assad was gassing his own people even as he was winning the war, and it gamed him. So none of it made sense. So that's what made me start looking into it. So as soon as you looked into it, you saw that there was a cover-up happening. And that the OPCW, actually, there were whistleblowers that they said that, no, this wasn't. So anyway, I'm getting too into the weeds on that. But
no, but I think you should get into the weeds, because this is a great example of how over and over the media tricks people into war. And they do it in the most depraved, dishonest ways possible. And this costs lives both overseas and here. So if you want to break this down at length, please feel free, because I don't think anything's more important than taking on the war machine, frankly.
So they use those reports of Assad gassing his own people, which I don't understand why it's worse to kill someone with gas or to kill someone with a bomb. I don't understand. Hey, why don't you blow their head off like a good Christian? So with a Christian bomb made by Christians in a Christian bomb factory. So it turned out that, and they literally use this for pretext for war. That's what they do all the time. They make up a bullshit story, just like WMDs in Iraq. And so I was on the forefront of debunking that and got it right. And Aaron Mate also was. And so I was being smeared. And I saw that there's a sitting congressperson who's also currently serving in the military who's saying the same thing I am, and they're doing the same thing to her as they're doing to me. So all that stuff that they remember when Trump insulted the Gold Star family?
Oh, yeah.
And everybody got to be so indignant and so outrageously offended at Trump doing that, because how could you not respect the military, especially someone who died and served? Well, here they were doing it to someone who's currently serving,
right?
And because it served their political purpose. And what is their political purpose? The military-industrial complex's complex propaganda to get us into another fucking bullshit war, and that's exactly what it was. And so we've been proven correct over and over. And so that's what attracted me to Tulsi. And I saw that not even Bernie had the balls to tell the truth about that. And Bernie didn't have the balls to make the DNC pay a price at all for cheating him. Not only did he not make them pay a price, he didn't make them change. They didn't change any of the stuff that they do. They still do anyway. So you saw that they couldn't even count votes in Iowa in the primary. People forgot that, right?
Yeah.
Because Bernie won, so they had to find a way that to make Pete Buttigieg win, because that's who they wanted. All right. So anyway, so that was what initially attracted me to Tulsi Gabbard, and that she had stepped down from her position as vice chair of the DNC when she saw that they were cheating Bernie and they weren't giving him a fair shake. So she stepped down, and she didn't take corporate money and all the right things. Now, they just, so if they can do that to her, which they did, that's why they hated her. Now, I didn't like the way she exited the race. Hurt me, but but other than that, who cares about me, right? That's not about me. So anyway, it's I like that she left the Democratic Party. I think it's a mistake to start just getting in bed with the other corporate party. It's just they're two fucking corporate pro-war parties. Don't kid yourself into thinking that the Republican Party isn't a fucking pro-war. There's that. The problem is there isn't a difference between the parties, and that's the big problem. And so people had a lot of criticisms of Tulsi. Some one of them is like, oh well, she's for the drone war, and I'm like, hey, who is? I'm against it too. So what we do is, she's still the best telling the truth about our foreign wars and entanglements. And so then you try to drag her away from that kind of stuff for being for drone wars and stuff. I don't know what else to tell you, but I got to appreciate an ally wherever I can find an ally. And I really appreciate that Tulsi stepped up and told the truth about Syria. And right now, we are still, people forget this, we're the terrorists in Syria. We're funding Al Qaeda and ISIS and in bed working with them in Syria. And right now, we're occupying a third of Syria still. We say Putin is this imperialist maniac, right? And warmonger who invades his neighbors. Well, is it because Syria is not our neighbor that makes it okay that we invaded them and we're occupying a third of their country still? And which third of the country do you think that is? Oh, it's the part with the oil. And which leads me to my other big point I love to talk about is that, why did they really hate Trump, right? They used to all go to each other's weddings. They all go to the Epstein Island and bang kids together. Why did they, golf together? Why did they donate to each other? All the same shit. Why did they hate him, right? When Hillary Clinton elevated him, Hillary Clinton wanted him to be the nominee of the Republican Party. And so she got all her minions in the press to elevate Donald Trump. And so, of course, he got like $2 billion in free media. And then they blame podcasters for Donald Trump getting elected after the mainstream media gave him. And there's a recording of the head, Les Moonves, the head of CBS, at a shareholders meeting saying, hey, yeah, Donald Trump, he's bad for the countries, but he's great for CBS. Go, baby, go. And then they all laugh.
Oh, wow.
And so, you never heard that?
No, I never heard that.
Yes. And so, and then you have people like Donnie Deutsch on MSNBC admitting if Bernie got the nominee, he'd vote for Trump. And then, I mean, that's who these people are. So why do they hate Trump? They hate Trump, not because he invented lying in Washington, D.C., right? He didn't even do it as good as the other ones. Meaning that you could see he was lying, right? That's the whole thing. Like, oh, Donald Trump, what happened? He invented lying in Washington. Anyway, they don't hate him for lying. They hate him because he would accidentally tell a big truth every once in a while, like that there's a deep state. Right. And running things. And the other thing is like, hey, remember when they asked him, why are you leaving those soldiers in Syria? And he says, for the oil. They're like, you can't say that. You got to say liberty, democracy. And he's gassing us up. No, it's for the oil. It's our oil. And we're taking the oil. And they're like, we got to get this guy out of here. He's going to fuck everything up. Because they couldn't do that so they can't do World War III with Donald Trump after they tell everybody he's crazy and working for the Russians. And that's exactly what they wanted to get started with Russia and China simultaneously. And I was told that's the stuff we were supposed to be afraid of Donald Trump doing. That right, Donald Trump was going to be the crazy maniac going around picking fights with our friends. They're going around picking fights with the two biggest nuclear powers in the world. Anyway, So I've talked too much. Sorry.
No, that I remember very vividly during the debates when Rand Paul said, does this person have the kind of temperament you want with his finger on the nuclear button, someone who makes fun of people's looks? And Trump said, I never went after him for his looks, and there's plenty of material there, that much I can tell you. But even Rand Paul laughed. But the point was, that was one of the big arguments against Trump. This guy's such a loon that at any moment he's just going to see a mean tweet from somebody and just hit nuke, and it's going to detonate the nukes. And World War III was the biggest argument, why to be against Trump. And at the same time now, it seems that World War III is something that if you're not in favor of, you hate America and you want Ukrainians to all be mass murdered. I was born in Ukraine. I think the situation is very, very tricky. I'm very concerned because my expertise is with Korea. And in the Korean War, you had Mao and Stalin in the north, and you had the UN and the US in the south. And it was the Korean people who paid the price. The country was completely decimated in the most horrific ways. And my big concern is if you have one powerhouse in the east and all these forces in the west and Ukraine's in the middle, I don't know what the answer is, but for people just glibly be like, well, too bad, we just got to do what we got to do and escalate things. Escalation literally means death.
It's such our people have no idea just how corrupt our government is. Like, they just think it's regular corrupt.
Right? Yeah, right. Yeah.
It is. It's so corrupt. We are sending $100 billion to Ukraine for a proxy war with Russia. At the same time, we won't even spend $200 million to give sick days to the railroad workers who make who are the glue in our capitalist society. That's how fucking corrupt this. So what the Democrats did was they tricked everybody because they can't run on their policies. They have to trick people into saying we're defending democracy. You're voting against fascism. And what's the first thing they do as soon as they fucking crush the goddamn workers who are about to strike against the railroad union. And guess why they did that? So, by the way, that's called that's real fascism, right? That's real fascism, not being mean to Jim Acosta fascism. That's real fascism, okay? When the government comes together with the corporation to screw the citizens and take away their ability to organize. That's exactly what Joe Biden did, right? So that's what Mussolini called the definition of fascism. And so the Democrats actually did that, and they all participated in it. Almost every member of the squad except one. So that's what I'm starting to lose my point, but that's what they've got nothing to run on anymore. The Democrats have to run on bullshit like that. They have to run on stuff like I'm running against fascism. The real fascist is Joe Biden. He's been his whole career. And the fact that they say Donald Trump and like he invented lying, don't tell Democrats that Joe Biden had to drop out of running for president the first time because he got caught lying so much. He was a plagiarist. They had to drop out at that time. And then he said he graduated at the top of his class. He was chosen the outstanding political science student, and he had 3 majors. It turns out he graduated at the bottom of his class. He wasn't the outstanding student, and he graduated, and he only had 1 major. So all of it he made up. He even made up that where he went to college. He pretended he went to a college he didn't go to. I covered it on my show. So again, people have no idea how corrupt their government is. Joe Biden is the reason why prisons are overflowing, and we have more people in prison in the United States than China. Right? I mean, just in raw numbers, we're the world's biggest penal colony, right? And we have them all doing slave work in prison, right? It's really unbelievable. And by the way, we can't give people health care. We got people living under every bridge. You know what? The money we sent to Ukraine, we could have fixed homelessness, because they say between $20 and $40 billion would fix homelessness, right? Well, we got that money in our back pocket. They're going to give it again another $40 billion to Ukraine. Hey, how about I'm okay. Go ahead. Give it to Ukraine. Can you also get $40 billion to the United States so we could fix fucking homelessness and get out of it? It's just the craziest thing to me. No, that's how corrupt the gears of our government only work in one direction, and that direction is corruption. That's why they can't give sick days to the railroad workers who everyone admits are the glue to our capitalist society. And then if they struck, it would be a devastating blow to our economy. Then maybe we give those people that's how corrupt it is. They can't even act in their own interest. It would be in the machine's interest to give those workers sick days, but it won't even do that. So this is exactly as Marx predicted. Capitalism is eating itself. The government is 100% corrupted. You don't have a that's the thing that kills me is they talk about how January 6th they undermine democracy. That's adorable that you think you live in a democracy, because it's been proven by a Cambridge study that in Princeton that we don't live in a democracy. Your democracy was stolen from you decades ago, which is why workers still live paycheck to paycheck. 80% of them before the goddamn COVID lockdowns, 80% of workers live paycheck to paycheck. Half the country can't afford a $400 emergency. 50% of wage earners in $30,000 or less. And workers hadn't had a raise since 1980. And that's got nothing to do with fucking Russia or those guys on January 6th. That's got to do with that your democracy was stolen from you by fucking the corporate hijacking of our government, which is why you still don't have health care, but they do in Russia.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I agree with almost everything you said. One of the other things I'd like to hear you speak on, and do you share my big issue with all this massive spending, like that fight inflation bill, is the fact that all of this spending is inflationary. And since we are talking about inflation, I do want to take a second and discuss Patriot Gold. Now, it's true carnage in the stock market, and like anything we've ever seen, the average stock is down 41.7% from its 52-week high, meaning stocks will have to rally 71.5% now to get back to its high. With more interest rate hikes expected from Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank, and others, they're warning of a 25% slide in stocks, another 25% slide. Meanwhile, gold is down only 8%. It's proven to be a source of protecting wealth and a hedge against inflation. Now, John Paulson, he's a billionaire. He said last week, gold will rise when the Fed fails to get inflation back to 2%. And when the Fed admit inflation has won in a knockout, gold will soar. Do yourself a favor, check out Patriot Gold Group. You can call 888-505-9845 or go to patriotgoldgroup.com/p/malice. You can sign up to get the free 2022 Gold IRA Kit. Inside the 2022 Gold IRA Kit, you'll learn how you can instantly get up to 10 grand or more. Seriously, get 10% back on money that you decide to protect. You'll learn how to do it 100% tax and penalty free. Yes, there's a way to legally safeguard your retirement savings tax and penalty free. And you'll learn how you can protect and grow your retirement right now. With the economy in such a state of uncertainty, protect your retirement savings from inflation and dollar devaluation. The best thing about it all, it's 100% free. Guys, gold IRAs have helped thousands protect over $1 billion in retirement savings. Yes, $1 billion. And Patriot Gold has been helping Americans protect, secure their retirement savings in gold IRAs for over a decade. One of the best values out there is the no fee for life IRA. With qualified accounts over 100 grand, no fees for storage, no fees for shipping, no new rollover fees, no new account setup fees, no fees for the life of your account. With Patriot Gold Group, you'll never pay retail and always work directly with the owners. Patriot Gold has a group of industry experts with a wealth of experience. They've held senior positions, some of the largest retail precious metal investment firms in the U.S., and they eliminate multiple layers of executive and shareholder compensation, work directly with you to secure the most competitive pricing on gold and silver. And the proof in what they do is all right there. Better Business Bureau gives them an A+, top rated, highest rated, featured by Consumer Affairs 6 years in a row. They've earned over 1,000 5-star customer ratings, and they're ranked number 1 by both Investopedia and Money.com, and they're endorsed by Dick Morris. Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention my name. That's Michael Malice. You get best-in-class service from Patriots protecting Patriots. Patriot Gold Group has the no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no fee for life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Call 888-505-9845 to get a free investor guide today. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 6 years in a row. 888-505-9845. Let's get back to the show. Inflation hurts the poorest people the most disproportionately. If you or I, have to buy food and instead of let's say $5, it costs $6. It's not going to really make a difference to maybe you or me. But when someone is single mom, working dad, they are living paycheck to paycheck. I was an immigrant. I remember, like, we were very, very poor when we came to America. And what my mom or grandma would do is you go to one store on the corner, see how much the grapes are. You walk the whole block to see how much the grapes are at the other store. And it's a few cents more, you go back. This is time that they could have been spending elsewhere. They don't need to be worrying about these pennies. But what inflation does is when people are that poor, they're the first ones who get hit disproportionately. And it seems like the person who single-handedly caused inflation and caused all the problems in America is Donald Trump. And that just seems to me so almost despicable. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, what's amazing is, like, so Naomi Klein can write that book, The Shock Doctrine, and which talks about how the capitalists used, these huge shocks to implement their predatory policies. And COVID, which now looks like it was the virus was invented in a lab in Wuhan, which was funded by our government, meaning Dr. Fauci, which we went around regulations to do, and then lied to Congress about actually doing that. He lied twice when he was asked if he funded gain of function research in Wuhan lab, and he said no twice, which to me is lying, which is a crime to lie to. That's a felony. But of course, he'll never be punished because he's lying at the behest of the establishment. Remember, if you said that came from from the Wuhan lab, you were called a racist. So now it's like, wow, it's just, so you have to be extra suspicious now when someone says something's racist. It's like, oh, it sounds like there's probably true, right? Because that's what they're doing now. And we saw it happen with that. I mean, it's like, so whenever it's like, oh, when they overreact too much, like to the Barrington Declaration, right? So people, I don't know if they know what that is. The Barrington Declaration was at the beginning of COVID. There was a bunch of scientists, Nobel laureates, stuff like that, who had a different idea on how to handle this pandemic, right? And their idea was to not do lockdowns, but to do targeted protection for people who had comorbidities and who were elderly. Turns out they were right. Well, Fauci couldn't have that because they had a plan in place to make sure everybody in the world got a jab. And so Pfizer can make $100 billion. And $100 billion is a lot of money, right? So so they smeared everybody in the Barrington Declaration. And that's what those emails proved, that they were saying, hey, we have to get our friends in the media to do a hit piece on these doctors and make them look like crazies, because now they even have Nobel Prize winners that are signing on to it. So that got revealed. So of course, but nobody knows this stuff, right? Because it doesn't get amplified in the media. Why? Because $100 billion not only buys you the government, but it buys you the media. Right. So people have no idea how corrupt. That's why they could lie about ivermectin and make you think that a medicine that has saved literal billions of lives, that won the Nobel Prize, it's on the WHO list of essential medicines. They could all make you think of some kind of horse paste.
But
right?
And can I interrupt you? Because if you listen to the corporate press, you would get the impression that Joe Rogan put on sunglasses and a trench coat and a hat. He went to a pet store. He got some vials of horse paste. It's like, are you Joe Rogan? No, just ring me up. As if he wasn't taking medication under medical supervision of experts. Listen to the experts. And as if that was the only thing he was taking. And as if it's only used for horses, right? Like, even from that perspective, it's like, why is it horse paste? Why is it dog paste or cat paste? Even on its face, the story was nonsensical. Yet people will tell you, it's to this day, that Joe Rogan injected himself with horse paste because Trump told him to.
Yeah. And by the way, Trump wants credit for the vaccine and they won't give it to him because that messes up. He's the guy who developed it under warp speed. He wants credit for it. But exactly why do they hate Donald Trump? Because he's bad for their brand, right? Yeah. Donald Trump, they can sell more vaccines with Demented Joe than they can with Donald Trump, right? And that's all that is, because they have sufficiently sullied him, right, to be anti-science. So now they can't have that guy be the face of their push to get everybody vaccinated using bullshit science, which is what they used, right? They suppressed the so everything Joe Rogan said was true. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Yeah, and of course I was taking ivermectin too, and people were saying the same thing about me, and they're like, I get my ivermectin at Walgreens, and what? And what do you get it for? I go, because I'm in a study of how to treat people who are vaccine injured. I got injured by the vaccine, and this is a human medicine that is considered a wonder drug before COVID, and they're going to see if it works on this. And so, and the fact that people had an emotional, why do you give a fuck about what medicine my doctor prescribed for me? Why does someone else have an opinion on that? Because they've been propagandized to have an opinion about that and have an emotional attachment to it, because that's their way to own Trumpers, right? And go ahead.
The other thing is, like, they were laughing when Herman Cain died, as a result of COVID, because he had been vaccine hesitant. But it's like Joe Rogan took these medications and he was back to work. So what do you
not only was he back to work, he tested negative for the fucking virus in 48 hours. 48 hours.
Right. So
you can't do that.
It was pointless. Worst case scenario. It's not like it made it worse.
So that's just propaganda. Well, you saw when he got Dr. Sanjay Gupta on his show, first thing he got to first thing he had to do was school Dr. Sanjay Gupta on natural immunity. Do you remember that?
Yes. Of course. Sanjay Gupta was, oh, it doesn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah, and Gupta goes, well, Joe, you had it, you got over it, now you should get your vaccine. And Joe goes, why should I get a vaccine? I have natural immunity. And he goes, oh, but the vaccine, and so doctors all of a sudden during COVID decided to pretend they forgot about how your natural immunity, that's been a thing since the beginning of fucking time, that when you get a virus, your body produces a natural immune response to that virus going forward. And of course you have it now. And so Dr. Sanjay Gupta had to get schooled about that from a pothead comedian on television. And the next thing, Joe Rogan got Dr. Sanjay Gupta to admit that they were all lying about ivermectin at CNN. And he tried to do it with mealy-mouthed words, and Joe didn't let him off the hook. He said, no, they weren't. It's because Sanjay Gupta says, oh, you seem pretty upset about that. Like somehow Joe's the asshole because he got upset that CNN's lying about him taking ivermectin. And Joe goes, no, you should be upset about that. Yeah, it was perfect. I was like, wow, he really handled that. And he go, oh, you're pretty upset about that, huh, Joe? No, you should be upset about that your news organization is lying, not only about a medicine, but about a comedian who's taking a for what purpose? Oh, because he gets bigger in ratings than you. That's why he gets 1,100% more viewers than anything on CNN.
They also lied about lying, because then they said, all we said was ivermectin has one of its uses being horse paste. It's like, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
You're lying about the lie.
Why would you even mention that? Would you say penicillin? 80% of antibiotics are used on farms. Would you say penicillin? He's using a cow medicine, but that's what you guys did. And then the FDA even tweeted out, hey, y'all, you're not a horse. Don't take ivermectin. So they did. They lied about the lying. So people have no idea that we're living right now, our society, our government, our culture, we're living in an Aldous Huxley / George Orwell fucking scenario. It's not close. There's not parts of our society that are like it. It's 100%. You are completely tracked for 24 hours a day. They not only know what you're watching on TV or what you're looking up on your internet, that they know they know what you're saying in your emails. They have every email, every text, every phone call. They have it, right? And they're doing it because of 9/11. And you're not allowed to ask questions anymore. And if you ask questions about the establishment narrative, you are immediately called a white supremacist or a conspiracy theorist. It's the most craziest thing I've ever seen. They'll even do it to black people. Larry Elder, when he ran for governor in California, he opened up the LA Times headline and said, Larry Elder, white supremacist.
And the black face of white supremacy.
That's it. The black face of white supremacy. And I was like, isn't it just like a black guy to be so sneaky to hide all that white supremacy behind that black skin? They're the worst white supremacists, the black ones.
They're really bad at it.
Yeah. Same thing with the truckers in Canada, right? When I saw the truckers who they were white truckers and black truckers and native truckers and India truckers from India with the beard and the thing. And when I saw that, I was like, white supremacists. These have got to be white supremacists.
You know, the first question I was going to ask you, but I think you already answered it for me. I always use you as a lot of times I have people in my audience who are conservatives, and they basically have this idea that like red pill means conservatives, and I tell them they're absolutely inaccurate. And I use you as an example of someone who I would describe as a red pilled leftist. Would you regard that categorization as accurate?
I don't. Honestly, I don't know. What does that mean? What does a red pill mean?
Red pill is the belief that what is presented as fact by the corporate press is in reality a carefully constructed narrative designed to keep some very unpleasant people in power.
Oh, well, but if that's the definition, then certainly.
Yeah. Okay. That is the definition. And here's the thing. I've had conservatives on the show and I asked them to find conservatism, and they don't really have a good answer other than like progressivism is bad. What does being on the left mean to you?
To me, it means being anti-war, first and foremost. And secondly, it means being for healthcare for everybody. That's what it means to me. That I don't know I don't call myself a progressive anymore, because if Bernie Sanders is a progressive, then I'm not that.
Okay.
Because Bernie Sanders is a fucking war pig to his bones, to the point where he tries to smear peace activists. He says, "Who's paying you?" That's what him.
Oh, he said that?
One of the most powerful people in the world, Bernie Sanders, said that to peace activists, calling out his bullshit war votes for fucking the Pentagon. And so I don't put a label on it anymore. All I do is say that, you know, I'm anti-war, I'm for healthcare, I'm for getting rid of this police state we live in.
Yep.
I'm for getting rid of that. What is that? Whatever that immunity is that cops have. I forget what it's called.
Qualified immunity.
Qualified immunity.
Yeah.
And I'm for you know, I'm not. So I guess so that would be the big thing. My also thing would be I'm for, if you're a capitalist, we're living in a monopoly. This is an oligarchy, yes. Right? And so you don't have competition. It's like George Carlin said, right? I get 47 different types of cereal in 2 political parties.
Yeah.
You don't have to, and they both serve the same people, as Ralph Nader told us, that the only difference between a Democrat and a Republican is how fast their knee hits the floor when a donor enters the room.
But Jimmy, it's also like we have a year-long campaign where publicly the voters are losing choices one by one as the field is winnowed down. The whole point of the primaries is, as you watch it from your house, as you lose choices to vote for the president.
Hey, I don't mind. It bothers me when the people I want to win an election don't win the election, but that's not why I complain. I complain because I want my vote to actually count.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. Your vote doesn't actually count. And so like how they cheated Bernie, and it doesn't matter. So, and even you know, getting back to that Princeton study, they showed that unless you're in, I think, the upper 10% of wealthy people, what you want reflected in legislation doesn't get reflected. Like no matter what you want, 0% of the time it gets reflected. But if you're in the upper 10% of the wealthy in America, let's say 10% of those people want something done. Well, 10% of the time it will get done. If half of them want something to get done, 50% of the time it'll get done. So you see what I'm saying? They have a direct correlation to their wants and needs to legislation happening. And it doesn't for the bottom 80% of fucking wage earners in America. It just isn't there. We don't have, and you saw it right now, right? So Joe Biden and the Democrats called himself, Joe Biden says he's the most pro-worker president in history, which that might actually be true because we don't have any pro fucking presidents since FDR, baby. And so then immediate thing he does is institute fascism to crush workers. They were going to win that strike. That's that's the whole thing. Like CNN went out and fairmongered for the corporation by saying, if you guys are going to crush our economy right before Christmas, are you willing to do that? That'll put a lot of pain on people. Instead of like going, hey, why don't those people who own your company give you sick days and get this? It's like instead of flipping it, but of course, because of the red pill, I see what CNN's doing because I know who they serve, and because I read manufacturing consent, I know that it's the ownership that you're not going to be allowed to say something on CNN that the owner of CNN doesn't want you to say. That don't be stupid. And you get pre-selected out, right?
Right.
I remember I was at a panel one time in San Francisco with these mainstream news reporters, and it was being moderated by an Emmy Award-winning newsman from NBC. And he's, and I'm like, and he's trying to discredit me by saying, he goes, have you ever covered news? Have you ever actually gone out and covered a story? And I go, yes, I have. Did you go to journalism school? And he goes, no. And I go, I didn't think so. So why do you pretend that? Wow. And he said, well, why did you think that? He goes, I don't know how you think we all think at these editorial meetings that we're all. I go, I'll never know because I'll never be invited to one of those editorial meetings because I colored outside the lines my whole life. And you've been groomed to be in that editorial meeting since you were in fucking kindergarten and you don't know it.
Folks, I love Omaha Steaks, and they were very smart because they sent me a box of steaks, and my buddy Jay grilled them up, and I ate them, put them inside of me, and they were absolutely delicious. And who doesn't love the gift of meat or the treat of meat? The holidays are here. You can achieve gifting greatness when you give the gift of perfectly aged, tender, and delicious Omaha Steaks. The steak experts at Omaha Steaks have put together specially curated gift packages to help take the guesswork out of gifting and make you a holiday hero. Go to omahasteaks.com. You can take advantage of 50% off site-wide, plus use code Malice at checkout. You get $30 off your order. $30 of meat. You get the butcher's cut filet. You get the boneless chicken. You get the burgers. They've even got easy-to-prepare comfort meals that are ready in a flash. Omaha Steaks can ship your order right away. Shop early. Beat the shipping rush. Go to omahasteaks.com. Use promo code Malice at checkout. Omaha Steaks is a gift from the heart, a gift that will be remembered with every unforgettable bite. Order with complete confidence today, knowing you're ordering the very best. Visit omahasteaks.com, 50% off site-wide, plus use promo code Malice at checkout to get that extra $30 off your order. And, of course, a minimum order may be required. Folks, one of the things I am very grateful for as I enter my old age is that I've kept most of my hair. 2 out of 3 men will experience some form of hair loss by the time they're 35, and more than 50 million men in America suffer from male pattern baldness. And Keeps has more 5-star reviews than any of its competitors. There are only 2 FDA-approved medications that can prevent hair loss, and Keeps offers both. Keeps offers a simple, affordable, stress-free way to keep your hair via convenient virtual consultation with a licensed medical provider, medications delivered straight to your door every 3 months. You don't got to leave the house. I sure don't want to. 24/7 care and support. They've got a network of care specialists to support you in making your hair goals a reality, and it's got a low-cost treatment start just $10 a month. Keeps offers generic versions of the 2 FDA-approved medications to prevent hair loss. Keeps has everything your hair needs, delivered straight to your door, discreet packaging, proven results. Remember, prevention is key. Treatments take 4 to 6 months to see results, so please act quickly. When it comes to your hair, save more, spend less. If you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/welcome to receive your first month of treatment for free. That's keeps.com/welcome to get your first month free. keeps.com/welcome. Let's get back to the show. What you're referring to, the book Manufacturing Consent, for people who don't know, is by Noam Chomsky. And Chomsky has this really superb quote where he discusses how the best way to maintain control in a society is to have strictly limited debate, very passionate debate within strictly limited parameters. So that gives so if you have, for example, the political spectrum, let's say, would be 1 in 10. If you keep the debate between 4 and 5, and you have those 4 and 5s ready to kill each other, people really think, oh, I've got a whole range of choices. Those 5s are the devil or those 4s are evil. Meanwhile, 1 through 4 and 5 through 10 are off the table.
Here's a way I like to explain it. That very thing that Chomsky said. So let's say we're talking about Syria, and you turn on the TV to see what's going on in Syria, and the debate is not, hey, did Syria gas their own people? And let's bring in people on both sides of the thing to see what's happened and what's actually going on. That's not the debate. The debate's jumping off point is they did gas their own people. And now how much bombing should we do?
Right.
That's
Exactly.
and so you can have these debates like, should we bomb a lot or should we bomb a little? And we can yell at each other in between those parameters, but you can never say, hey, should we not be bombing? Right. And so you're never allowed. That's why Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi, people like that were never invited on MSNBC during Russiagate, because you weren't allowed to say, hey, this was all made up. You weren't allowed to say that on corporate news. Which it was. Russiagate was 100% made up. I proved it on my show with Bill Binney, who was the NSA's top code breaker since the 60s. And then he started to tell the truth about what they were actually doing after 9/11. They tried to frame him, put him in jail. He's smarter than the FBI. He outsmarted them. And then he's the one who figured out that there's no way that those emails could have been hacked by Russia. And he proved it on my show. So I knew before everybody else that what the Mueller report was going to conclude was that the Trump and his administration campaign had no collusion, meaning there was no conspiracy between Trump and Russia during the campaign. And that's what the Mueller report said explicitly. And I knew that. And you know, it was funny. I'm a comedian, I'm a stand-up comedian, and my comedian friends thought I was fucking crazy, right? They're just like, Jimmy, what is... And then all of a sudden, I tell you, I'm going to tell you what the Mueller report's going to say. And then it came out, and they were like, "Holy shit! How did you know?" And I was like, "Because I looked into it," which they don't want you doing anymore, by the way, because Big Pharma's got a jab to sell and make $100 billion. And so they've now got even comedians repeating. Maybe you've heard people say this. Please, folks, don't do your own research. Oh, you're going to be doing your own research. You know, before COVID, doing your own research used to be called reading. Now it's like I woke up in the middle of a Bill Hicks bit. Well, looks like we got ourselves a reader. Yeah, tell me, boy, what you reading for? Don't you know everything that needs to be readed's already been readed by a smart person? That's what it's come to. There's a tweet out yesterday by Pfizer, and it tried to mimic The Onion. It says, area man does Google search, becomes PhD in science. And they're saying, hey, please don't think because you're on the internet, you're a scientist. Thank God for real scientists.
Yeah. So
what they're doing is they're shaming you for trying to get informed. Hey, don't look stuff up. What are you doing? Reading? That's what they're doing that. They're trying to shame you for being dumb. So they've now made reading what dumb people do. It is the fucking unbelievable magic trick, but I have all my asshole fucking shit lib comedian friends saying it on stage every fucking night of their life. They go up and say, please tell me you're not doing your own research. I have one of my best friends in comedy, I know him for 30 years, comes off stage and I go, are you fucking insane? He's like, what? I go, you're shaming people for trying to get informed about an experimental medical treatment that there's no long-term data on. You're propping up big pharma propaganda instead of trying to poke holes in it. You think there's not lies all over this fucking thing, but you're shaming people for trying to get informed? You know, that's the opposite of what fucking comedy is supposed to be, right? And he didn't say anything. He didn't know what to say. I guess he didn't see it coming. And then that was that. And I just fucking walked away. But that's all of them. Comedians are supposed to be the skeptics, and they're not. They're the opposite. They're the rule enforcers now. It's the opposite of comedy. It's the weirdest. They say shit like trust science. I've seen comedians get on stage and say, I trust the science. Well, you know, that's not how science works, right? Because science only works by questioning. That's why we know about E equals MC squared. Right? Because Einstein didn't accept Newton's idea of gravity. He had his own ideas. He questioned the science, and that's how it moves forward. That doesn't make Einstein anti-science. You don't trust science. You don't have faith in science. Science needs to be questioned. That's not religion is what you have faith in. That's what you have faith in, not science. But that's how they've got people who consider themselves smart, Democrat voting smart people to start repeating the dumbest propaganda I've ever heard, shaming people for reading. It's it's the most anti-intellectual thing I've ever seen while they try to pretend they're the smart people. It's mind-blowing. You can't if you read this in fucking Aldous Huxley's book, you would be like, oh, that's crazy. You were living in it.
There's two questions, and here's the thing: not only you're not supposed to do your research, you're not supposed to ask basic logical questions. And here's two basic ones that I have, which I've never heard anyone give an answer to. One is, if social distancing was efficacious, why didn't they bring it back? And if it wasn't efficacious, why do we do it to begin with? There's no answer for that one. And number two is, are you saying that kids who you admit cannot have are almost entirely safe from having COVID, and you're giving them a vaccine, which by your own admission lasts 6 months? Is your plan to have children get shots every 6 months in perpetuity? And if not, how is that wrong? And the answer is, okay, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. What was your first question again?
No, about social distancing. If it was a good idea,
they just
why
made
did
it
they
up.
bring it back? And if it wasn't a good idea, why do we do it to begin with?
So where you know where that came from?
It was some kid with a science fair project.
They just made it up. There was no science to back it up at all. You know what's hilarious? I'm sure you've done this. I fly all the time, right, to go do stand-up comedy. And so I'll always chuckle when I'm standing in line just before I get on the plane. They want you to stay distance until you get packed into a fucking plane like a sardine. It's the dumbest thing. Then you can take your mask off if you're eating, because, while being the coronavirus, while being very deadly, it's respectful of meal times. It's not, if you're seated, you're protected. I think that's what Fauci says. The coronavirus, it wants to come out and kill people, but then it sees, oh no, there's a potato skin, everybody back, they're eating. I don't want to be an asshole. I want to kill them, but I'm not going to be rude while they're eating. It's like you respect the celebrities when they're eating. You don't go get an autograph. Coronavirus doesn't kill you while you're eating. It's the same thing.
Okay, let's talk about another conspiracy theorist. Very famously, years ago, you spat in Alex Jones. Have you been following what's recent?
Did not spit. That was not it. That did not happen.
Please correct me. Please.
Alex Jones is very funny.
Okay.
And when he came on the set of the Young Turks at the Republican convention during a live broadcast, and he wouldn't get off, and so Cenk Uygur didn't know how to handle it. That's not how you handle a heckler. Right. Just take your coat off. And I was just like, are you fucking kidding? You turn off the cameras and you go, okay, Alec, we'll turn them on when you leave, right? And you say, please turn off the cameras. We have somebody here. And then you go, please get security. And Alex, it's nice to see you as always. And let's have a drink tomorrow, right? That's how you handle it. You don't start fucking. Well, that's how they handle it. So then there was 1,000 people on that. I mean, it was like it was crazy, man, what was happening. And, and Alex Jones was pushing Cenk's buttons all the way fucking through it. It was unbelievable how Cenk fell for everything Alex Jones was doing to him. Alex Jones was loving it, right? And as I got up there, everybody screaming and crying. And as I got up there, I was drinking some tea. I had some iced tea. And the last thing I heard Alex Jones say was, hey, I'm just trying to be nice. And that was so funny to me. I did a spit take.
Okay.
And that's and so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But all my apologies. I certainly would like to bury the hatchet.
What do you think of the recent?
When I went, the first time I went to Austin to do comedy, I was playing the State Theater. I was very excited, right? And so I go to dinner the night before. I get there, and the night before I go to dinner at this steakhouse right in downtown. And I'm sitting there, and who comes in and sits at the table behind me? A fucking Alex Jones. I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna kill me. I was so afraid he was gonna fucking crack my neck. And luckily, it was at the end of my meal. I'd already eaten. I was just about finished, and so I was just like, oh, I would get the fuck out. And I just kind of slinked out of there. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
I was curious about what you thought of the recent court decisions against him.
I didn't follow it. But I do know that wasn't it like $40 billion or something like? Was it some crazy number like that?
It was like 100 billion or something crazy like that. Yeah, it was more than like the GDP of like Michigan.
I mean, they act like he put asbestos in baby powder and sold it to poor people or something like that, right?
Amount Alex Jones lawsuit. The number is just so. I mean, 1.5 billion. 1.5 billion was the ruling.
Yeah, I mean, that's first of all, that's how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to go to court, right? That's what's supposed to deter people from doing what they claim Alex Jones did, right? That's what the so we already had a system in place. That's why we didn't need extra censorship for Alex Jones. There's already so that's just like I say about Twitter and Facebook. We already have the First Amendment, and if someone's breaking a law, there's already law enforcement agencies around to take care of that shit. And so we don't need any extra censorship until we have to. You can't. You have to crack down on misinformation. Hey, they've had. First of all, I don't need somebody to. I don't need a person in the government or in Silicon Valley to pre-read my news for me and decide if I can read it or not, because that's what that is.
Right.
So, and what is the superpower that those news readers who censor for me, what is the superpower they have to read that and not have it affect them? But I don't have that power. I don't have the power to read that same thing and have it not affect me. I don't need somebody to I don't need somebody to pre-chew my food. I don't need somebody to pre-read my news. Okay. And that's all that, and every dictator, which right now we live in if you don't think you live in a dictatorship, well, you do, right? And the tightest prisons are the ones you're unaware you're living in. And so, as I've heard many times before from Chris Hedges, that we live in a corporate dictatorship, right? Where the face of the dictator has been replaced with a nameless, faceless corporate state that we all serve, and they have complete control, right? Because they control the government. So and then they can censor what you say on social media. They have access to your body because you want to get a job, you have to take a drug test. So they're basically, the corporations are basically the government. And we've gone through, as Chris Hedges says, a corporate coup d'etat in slow motion. And it is complete. Watching the Democratic Party, along with the squad, join together to commit fascism against rail workers.
Yes.
They won't denying them sick days. They get 0 sick days. That is real fascism. That's the kind of shit that we're living in. And January 6th is a sideshow distraction. January 6th hearings is what they call a show trial. If everything Trump did on that day that they said he did, they had that, they don't, it's funny, they don't interview the Secret Service. They interview a woman who overheard what the Secret Service said. That's not called a trial. That's called hearsay, and they're making it up. But if everything Casey Hutchinson said that Trump did on that January 6th, how does it change your opinion of him one bit? It's like, oh, he lunged for the wheel. I thought I knew him. Huh. Wow, that does change things. He threw ketchup on the wall. How can I live in this country? I mean,
folks, Michael Malice here. You might know me as an author, podcaster, really horrible person on Twitter. But as you know, I'm also an underwear model. And the underwear that I model is sheath underwear. I love sheath underwear. I wear it every single day because the trick with sheath underwear is they've got the dual pouch technology, one part for one part of male anatomy, another part for another part of your male anatomy. First time you try them on, you're going to be like, okay, this is a little weird. And then you're like, oh, this is the most comfortable underwear I've ever owned. They've got a lot of different styles to choose from, including a style that I designed in a dynamite kind of color pattern, and it's really cool, limited edition. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code Malice, you get 20% off today. That's sheathunderwear.com, MALICE, for 20% off. Comfort, performance, mobility, and it's the summer. They have this new mesh boxer brief as well, which will keep you cool, especially at the gym or if you're walking outside in the heat. sheathunderwear.com/malice for 20% off. Hey guys, Your Welcome is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Let's face it, sometimes multitasking can be overwhelming. Like when your favorite podcast is playing and the person next to you is talking and your car fan is blasting, all while you're trying to find the perfect parking spot. But then again, sometimes multitasking is easy, like quoting with Progressive Insurance. They do the hard work of compare rates so you can find a great rate that works for you, even if it's not with them. Give their nifty comparison tool a try. You might just find getting the rate and coverage you deserve is easy. All you need to do is visit Progressive's website to get a quote with all the coverages you want, like comprehensive and collision coverage or personal injury protection. Then you'll see Progressive's direct rate, and their tool will provide options from other companies all lined up and ready to compare. So it's simple to choose the rate and coverages you like. Press play on comparing auto rates, quote at progressive.com to join the over 27 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. Let's get back to the show. I'm curious if you've been following what's recently been happening with Kanye West and his whole tirades. And
well, you know, I think Kanye, it's funny because if they, I thought they found out he was funneling weapons to Nazis in Ukraine, and it turns out, I saw Nick Cruz said the other day, he goes, no, Kanye saw us giving all these billions of dollars to Nazis in Ukraine, and then he thought, well, everybody agrees with him. Now he can just start saying it out loud. So anyway, again, there's the Defense Department gets to keep their Twitter account. Okay, the Azov Battalion gets to keep their Twitter account, but Kanye West, again, it's just this crazy. You know, we get to cancel you as a person. We are living in this Aldous Huxley, fucking George Orwell dystopian future. It's a present. You're here. You're in it. And it's what's funny is that people aren't rising up, but there is something interesting, right? So testosterone levels are for sure going down.
Right.
So maybe that's why people aren't revolting.
Well, I think it's also, that's a good question. Were you surprised by how much Americans were bending over backwards, begging for more lockdowns and more things like vaccine passports?
100%, man. They're still doing it, by the way. LA County, which is where I live, they say they're thinking about reinstituting mask mandates indoors and shit. And it's just like, it's a Omicron. So COVID, the original strain, I had Dr. Robert Malone on my show who helped him. And he explained to us what's going to happen. He explained to me, first of all, that you can't vaccinate your way out of this pandemic. And I said, well, really? Because that's what everybody said. If we all get vaccinated, we won't have it. And he said, no, that's not the case. I'm like, they're lying about that? It turns out they were lying about that. Yeah. And he told me because it's called a leaky vaccine. He said all vaccines are leaky, meaning that if you get vaccinated, you still could contract the virus or transmit it. Some people can. But this vaccine was extra leaky, meaning that even if you get vaccinated, you're going to contract the virus and you're going to transmit it. So I immediately knew that vaccine mandates were wrong. When I had that information, and he said, now the virus, if let to mutate on its own, will become less deadly and more contagious. If we over-vaccinate, that's the bad thing to do because that will then create more virulent strains of the virus. And so people had that exactly backwards. I debated people about vaccine mandates on my show, and they had that exactly backwards. And they, even after I explained to them the science and showed them the science that you can't vaccinate your way out of this pandemic, I still had someone I was debating on my show go, I think if we would have got to 90% early on, we could have beat it. It's like you're just making it. So they just pull stuff out of their ass. They just make it up. The people who scream follow the science aren't following the science because that's why they had to say have faith in science. You don't have faith in science. Science has empirical evidence. And so I was.
Wait, but I got to interrupt you because even if you are going to follow the science, this is a new treatment, and we have no long-term data. So
that's right.
There's absolutely no science to follow, even the best case scenario.
That's best case scenario. There's only short-term data.
Right.
And I have videotape after videotape of Fauci saying you have to wait 10 years because, God forbid, he explained how they do vaccine trials.
Yeah.
And because he was trying to explain why it's taking so long to get an AIDS vaccine. So he was trying to defend himself for not coming up with an AIDS vaccine. And he was explaining about how long it takes. First you give it to 50 people. Then you give, if that goes okay, you wait. And then you give it to a couple hundred. And if that goes okay, then you wait a couple. And then he goes, it just takes years and years. And he said, and then because you don't want to be 10 years, 12 years down the line, and you find out, oh my God, we've been injuring people. That's what he said.
Yeah.
When he was trying to talk about why we don't have a AIDS vaccine, and then all of a sudden he was like, no, we did it. We did all the we did it. It's 3 months. We got it done. And then Pfizer didn't want to. The FDA wasn't going to release the vaccine trial data for 75 years.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, they had to. 75 years they weren't going to release the vaccine trial data, and I was like, did Pfizer kill Kennedy? What the fuck? Why would? So they had to sue. They had to sue to get that vaccine trial data. Which is, doesn't that make you feel great that Big Pharma is releasing vaccine trial data under court order? What the
And here's the
fuck?
thing: if the concern is vaccine hesitancy and people aren't getting vaccinated, and we really need everyone to get vaccinated, transparency would calm those people down, right? You would think, look, here's the receipts. We tried it. There's no repercussions. Now a large chunk of those people would be like, okay, I feel relieved. But if anything, you're feeding into their paranoia, right? According to their logic.
Well, I know for two things for a fact why they didn't want to release the vaccine trial data and be transparent is because they knew we would find out that they were that natural immunity is real because that was in the vaccine trial data. And the other thing we would know is they never even tested to see if it stopped transmission of the virus. They never. So those are the two things we would know right away. And that would get rid of vaccine mandates. And then the game is fucking over. So that's why they didn't want to release that data. And I'm surprised that all this stuff. So there's all the data. They have data in there about myocarditis. They have data in there, just like when they sold Vioxx to us, that they knew was going to kill more people than it helped. And in the internal documents, it revealed, hey, it's too bad with the heart problems, but this is going to do really well for us. This drug, meaning we're going to make a lot of money, and whatever fines we have to pay for killing these people, we're still going to make more profit. So that kind of shit's all through. And so that's why they don't want to release data. Right. And so that's why you can't trust Big Pharma. And that was the biggest, to me, the biggest damage it did was it turned in people who are usually skeptical, people who are lefties who usually stick up for workers and usually are skeptical of big government, of government and big pharma and corporations. They totally threw it out the window and turned on the people who remained consistent, people like me. Now, I'm always skeptical of big government. I'm always skeptical of big pharma. And so they stopped doing that. And then they turned on people like me. And what's even worse, that's okay. I get it. I got scared at the beginning of COVID too. I got vaccinated. I'm double vaxxed. And then as soon as I got vaccine injured, I started looking into it. And everything I looked into, I found out they were lying. Yeah. They were lying about masks. They were lying about herd immunity. They were lying about natural immunity. They were lying about vaccinating our way out of this pandemic. They were lying about transmission. They were lying about contraction. They were lying about where the virus came from. They were lying about funding of the virus. There wasn't a fucking thing they weren't lying about. And I started to blow the whistle, and all my comedian friends started calling me anti-vax. And all my YouTube friends started calling me anti-vax. And it was just like, do you not see what the fuck I'm saying? Do you not see that this vaccine does not stop transmission? It doesn't stop you from catching it or passing it on, which is why you can't mandate it, especially when there's side effects to it. And they just closed their ears and they became tools of authoritarianism. All my comedian friends, all my YouTube friends. And I get it. You're scared. Okay. But what's worse is now when the evidence is clear that this stuff causes way more heart disease than it should, and that they've stopped it for males under 40 and shit like that. That's how bad it is. And now we're finding out they're doing post-mortem autopsies on people, and we're finding out people are dying from sudden death from this with heart attacks. I just got reported by John Campbell. There's a study in Germany. I'm not making this up. And so, so now that the evidence is clear, leading cardiologist in the UK was just on my show, saying that they should stop all these vaccines now. They do way more harm than good right now. And then they were mandating this shit to people, and people don't have health care to take care of themselves once they get vaccine injured. So luckily I have health care. I had money to go see doctors and specialists and neurologists, which is what I had to fucking do to get better from the vaccine, which I'm not better. What do those people do when they get injured? So the real failing that this exposes is those people who stuck their fingers in their ear when I was telling the truth about the vaccine mandates, that still, when the evidence is in, they still won't apologize and they still won't make amends or a sincere act of contrition. That's the real sign of absolutely no character. And it turns out most people are pieces of shit.
I'm sure you know this, but people in the audience might not know. It is still illegal to come into the United States unless you're vaccinated. So that does massive damage to the tourism industry.
You still can't work in Hollywood unless you're vaccinated. They still do that shit. They still do that shit. Yeah, I have friends in Hollywood who can't go on auditions because they don't have a vax card. You have to. It's not. And Tim Robbins. So I did a video about that. So Tim Robbins did an interview with Matt Taibbi, and he admitted he was wrong about it, and that it's time Hollywood caught up with the science. That because we now know vaccines don't stop the transmission, vaccine mandates don't make any sense, and we should stop excluding the unvaccinated from working in Hollywood.
Can I interrupt you? It's even funnier because not only the new line was, "We never said it stopped transmission." Then they said, "We never said this. You're just pulling that your ass." And then they also say it was never mandated because the government didn't say you had to do it. It was private businesses who could do whatever they want. Have you seen those two lines?
Yes, and those are both easily debunked. You know, I've got the videotape. How about that?
Of course, everyone does. I've always wanted to ask. So I really wanted to ask you this question because this is something I don't know have a good answer to myself. I'm sure you remember very vividly in 2008, President Barack Obama, Senator Obama at the time, campaigned very heavily anti-war. Bush was making a disaster of the Iraq War. I was the one who voted against the war. Hillary Clinton voted for it. Vote for me. As soon as he gets in office, it's a complete continuation in many ways of the war machine. So there's two scenarios, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts as to which is more likely. One is he was full of shit the whole time. The second scenario is he meant what he was saying, but as soon as you get in the Oval Office, they sit you down, they go, "Cool story, Senator, while you're out there. Now that you're in the Oval Office, here's how it's really going to be." Which do you think is more likely?
First scenario is more likely. He knew that you don't become president. You're allowed to become president. Okay. And Barack Obama got more money from Wall Street than his Republican opponent, and nobody even mentioned it, right? Barack Obama's entire cabinet came from an email from Citibank, and we know that because of WikiLeaks, and that's another reason why they want to kill him. So yeah, that's why, so when you don't get more money from Wall Street than the Republican you're running against, unless those guys fucking know exactly who you are. They knew he was going to be a tool of the military industrial complex and Wall Street. He wasn't a departure from George Bush. He was a continuation of George Bush. Barack Obama took us from 2 wars to 7. He kicked 5.1 million families, not people, families out of their houses during an economic fucking debacle caused by Wall Street. Didn't punish Wall Street for it. He kicked 5.1 million families out, gave those families houses to the banks, and made sure those bankers who created this problem didn't miss their fucking bonuses. Yeah. That's who Barack Obama is. Barack Obama went on to give you a right-wing healthcare plan, which is a giveaway to big pharma and the health insurance corporations. So how do I know that, Jimmy? Well, because people still go bankrupt when they get sick. Poor people don't have any greater access to healthcare because of it. And healthcare, health insurance, and big pharma stock went through the roof the day they fucking passed it. So what does that tell you? All right. And he didn't give us a public option like he promised. So he gave us, and so I was supposed to vote for Barack Obama because if we voted for Mitt Romney, we were going to get Mitt Romney care. I voted for Barack Obama and we got Romney care. It's fucking unbelievable. And so then he went on to deport more Hispanics than all the fucking presidents combined since 1890. He deported almost twice as many Hispanics in his first term as Donald Trump did in his term. Did you know that? He's the one who built those fucking cages. Why do you think there's Muslim immigrants, refugees at the airports for Trump to ban? Why do you think people go, why is he banning Muslim refugees at the airport? That's racist. Why do you think there are Muslim refugees at the airport? It's because they're fucking Barack Obama spent 8 years bombing the fucking shit out of them. And that's why, and so they can't have you putting those two things together, right? And so Barack Obama dropped 26,000 bombs in Syria. Barack Obama dropped more bombs than George Bush. So he was not a departure. Of course, that guy was a con man from day fucking one. Wall Street knew it. We just didn't.
I was on a panel once with Namiki Konst, who I'm sure you know. I don't know if you're still friends with her or not. I think she's great. And we were talking about, I was saying to her that as much contempt as Republicans or the Republican base has for Mitt Romney, the contempt for the Democratic base for Hillary Clinton, she said it's much worse. And I'm bringing to mind Hillary's comment during the 2016 debates when she was challenged on why the fact Wall Street gave her more money than anybody else. And she said, well, it's because I did such a good job after 9/11 that they kind of basically wanted to thank me. It was one of the most brilliantly disingenuous things I've ever heard. I'm just excited to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Hillary Clinton as being a champion of progressive values? Here we go. You have the floor, sir.
She's a progressive who gets things done.
Yeah, right. There you go. Case closed.
which is why we still don't have health care, which is why we still don't have a living wage, which is why the defense, under Trump, the Defense Department went from increased $132 billion a year. That's not once. That's every year. Then going forward, they spend an extra $132 billion a year on shit nobody needs. We have 1,000 military bases around the world. We have people living under every bridge. You don't think this is an end of an empire? You don't think you're living in the most corrupt country in the fucking world? I say that about Ukraine being the most corrupt country in Europe. The United States is way more corrupt. We're the most. I can't see another country more corrupt than this country, and people don't realize it because they're living in it. We're the richest. What do you call a system that takes the richest country on the face of the earth and renders half of its population poor or low income, can't afford a $400 emergency? 80% of workers live in paycheck to paycheck. The people who work on the railroads, the glue that keeps this thing together, they don't even get fucking sick days. What do you call that? You call that a fucking failed state. We're living in a failed state. We are Brazil. It's right here, and we don't realize it because we're fucking in it. It's like the frog, it's like the what's that story about the fish swimming along? He meets this guy. Hey,
water today? It's like, what's water? Yeah.
What's water? That's what it is. What's fascism? You're living in it.
I want to hear your thoughts on Hillary.
Oh, I mean, she's the personification of everything bad about politics. She pretends she's, talk about, they say Trump was beholden to Putin in Russia without evidence, but she took money from every fucking dictatorship around the world and they funneled it into their Clinton charity. Fucking took $140 billion from it. It's the level of corruption with Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. It makes Trump University seem like a child's play. How about that? How many times? Anyway, so the reason why Donald Trump is president is because Hillary Clinton rigged the primary.
Right.
That's why. That's the thing. But they want to blame Jill Stein. They don't want to blame the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton for rigging their primary against Bernie Sanders, who could have beat Donald Trump. The first time Bernie Sanders ran, he appealed to left wingers and right wingers and libertarian. He appealed to all those people because he had a populist message, and he was like, the Democrats and the Republicans are screwing you. The parties have abandoned you, and they're in bed with corporations, and so people heard that, and they knew it was true, right? And they didn't want it. They didn't want him to. They didn't want to pass the TPP. They didn't want to pass the. They knew NAFTA had fucked them over, right? And so. And that's both parties doing it, right? And so they knew that. Well, the second time Bernie ran, he didn't get any of those people anymore because he turned into just a regular goddamn Democrat. And he started off every speech talking about how corrupt Donald Trump is. Meanwhile, he's sucking I've got to suck the blue cock. Joe Biden's cock is full of liberty and freedom. No health care, okay, no living wage, right, and no marijuana. But the point is, Donald Trump's cock is the most corrupt cock in the history of our country. Joe Biden's cock. Blue cocks are good. Red cocks are bad. So I hope that explains how I feel about Hillary Clinton.
And about cock. Jimmy, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
That last part right now when I just did Bernie. That was fun for me.
You are welcome.